W4ARW. Let's go ahead and get to this month's QST review. First off, we'll start with the cover, which is what we usually do. Solar Eclipse QSO Party, August 21st. Make sure you're there for it. On the air, I mean. So as the solar eclipse comes, if this is the United States, running right here above the address line, the eclipse is going to look sort of like this, sweeping down across Montana, I believe it is, and then coming down right on the northern part of South Carolina. Kentucky, Missouri, Iowa, all good states to view it in. August 21st, there's also going to be a contest for it, which we will get to further in the review, but that is just the overview of it. And that's going to be fun. I'm going to do some mostly VHF operating. I'll do some HF if I'm available, but probably I'll mostly stick to VHF. Alright, let's get started with the review here. Let's open it up. We start off with Yaesu advertisements, then we move on to Cushcraft and Comet advertisements, then we move on to the table of contents, LDG advertisements, Second Century. Let's stop here for a second. Second Century is talking about a book. It's almost sort of a book report, if you will, this month, and it's really good. It's reviewing a book about batteries, and here's what Tom quotes here. He says, "Yesterday at the beach, I was reading a Buckman book, which is available on the ARRL website." Okay, a shameless plug. Picking it up, I thought, I know all about batteries. What's so complicated? They have no moving parts. Well, I learned that I knew nothing, or at least very little. So he goes into a brief description of what the different types of batteries it explains, gives some fun facts that the book mentions, and talks a little bit more about why it's a good idea to read. Move on to some more advertisements, then we hit the member spotlight for this month. Ruth Willett, Kilo Mike 4 Lima Alpha Oscar, and talking about enjoying the NPOTA program, which I got in the hobby just a little bit late for. Bummer for me. We have some national parks right here, especially the Blue Ridge Parkway and stuff like that I would have loved to activate had I gotten into the hobby just a hair earlier. So I started off with an interest in Morse code, and then found out about ham radio through that link and got into it that way. Next up, we're going to take a big jump here because there's a lot of advertisements this month in the beginning, and then there's one article that I didn't bother to review. But here is something that I enjoyed reading, Aircraft Tracking, Flight Aware, and How You Can Be of Service, talking about Flight Aware, which is a company doing flight tracking, aircraft monitoring, etc. across the United States and other locations, and talking about how you can get set up. Mentions the kit that you can get for free if your area is not already covered. Also building one with your Raspberry Pi. And then this is the general coverage map. Most of the United States is covered. Surprisingly little of Canada is covered. Not a lot of Africa, and almost absolutely zero Asia. So if you're in any of those locations, you can get a free aircraft tracking kit. Of course, you can build one yourself for, he says, a little over $100 here. So you just receive the data, file it in over the internet, and this does take a dedicated computer if you're going to build one yourself. Let's see, what are we going to review next here? This was a really good column. Feed lines, decibels, and dollars, talking about the difference between 300 ohm twin lead, 450 ohm window line, and coax. And here's the loss factor. Using RG58 at 7 megahertz, you have 1.3 decibels to 100 feet. Window line, you have 0.14. Window line is right about half of the loss of LMR 400. So go ladder line if you can, or window line. It's not actually official ladder line as you learn in here, but loss, what it's saying here is with 0.3 decibel loss and 100 watts, at 7 megahertz, you're going to be losing 7 watts. So that means if you have 100 feet of LMR 400 and you're transmitting at 40 meters, you're going to have 93 watts at the base of that antenna, compared to ladder line, which is going to give you about 96, 97 or so. So that was a lot of fun to read, and it also mentions the impedance. I don't talk about the product reviews much because this is a review, so I'm not going to re-review the stuff that they mentioned. But this was a really good issue for reviews. They did a hex beam, they did several other antennas, and I really enjoyed reading those. The doctor is in. He's getting some more feedback about the third harmonic for using a 40 meter antenna on 15 meters, and talks about using that same concept for the 2 meter 440 side, which he mentions here you can do. And the way to do that, mentioned by Joel here, is that what you need to do is consider, instead of finding perfect resonance on 2 meters and then seeing what it is on 440, you need to find the happy medium where it's about 1.2 or 1.3 across both bands. So that's the strategy there. Jim, ARRL, is asking, does changing the wire gauge used to wind an toroid alter the inductance of the toroid when the number of turns remains the same? The answer was not really, especially if you're using enameled wire. So there's a little bit on that. Hands-on radio, dissimilar metals, talking about putting 2 different types of metal together can actually cause faster corrosion due to the different makeup and the oxygenizing rate of the different metals, especially with galvanized onto non-galvanized. Hints and kinks. Let's see. Rope reel, and he's talking about recoiling his microphone here. So easy way to do that, just take a metal rod and then twist it really tightly around that metal rod at the diameter you like, and he says it fixes it really well. Heat sink for microphone connectors. I guess you'd have to be pretty long-winded. I mean, I get long-winded sometimes, but I think you'd have to talk a lot and need a heat sink for your microphone connector. I don't know though. I've never had any problem with my microphone connectors getting even the slightest hot. And then talking about also a quick tip, using an old hose reel to keep your lengths of rope stored nicely. DIY ham radio license plate up here, and then mounting modification for the butternut doorknob capacitor. I might actually try that one out. I have a butternut antenna, and you can see by the pictures here his is in real nice condition. Mine is not. Mine's a little bit older than this, but it still works all good. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn the radio off before I started the camera. I guess I should have thought of that. Anyway, next up, Youth DX Adventure on the Caribbean island of Saba. YDXA is the Youth DX Association, and I forget what the age limit is. It's in here somewhere. I think it's like under 20 or something. Anyway, they'll randomly select from the applicants a group of young hams, and they'll take them on a de-expedition. So quick overview of that by the same person, Cam4LAO, who was in the member spotlight earlier in this article. And this year it's going to be in Costa Rica. Last year it was in Saba, so look for them. I don't recall seeing the call sign in here that they're going to be using. I'll reread this, and if I see it, I'll put it in the description, so you'll know the call sign and overview of what they did last year. Next up, and I really am glad that K3WWP put this in here, because this is totally what I like to tell people. There are infinite possibilities with a minimal ham radio station. I live in one half of a duplex house on a tiny lot in River Valley town. I have room for only one simple, mostly indoor antennas. I use CW and QRP exclusively. In 1994, I tried to see how long I could make at least one contact every day using such a setup. See figure 1, which I'll just give you a close-up real fast of what his station looks like. Okay. See figure 1. More than 8,200 consecutive days later, I'm still making daily contacts in what me and my friends call the streak. Okay, and then he goes into mentioning some techniques for using the streak, the right gear, and antennas. I really enjoyed this because he's talking about how if you don't have an amplifier and a beam, you can still make contacts. And then it gets even better. Where does he say it here? He never arranges any schedules or anything, but he mentions in here, here you go, in the DX streak, so he tried making at least one DX contact every day with his setup. He has 1,433 days consecutive, starting, or on January 31st, 2017. He has 1,433 consecutive days, so that is pretty cool. Let's move on here. The Solar Eclipse QSO party, which is going to be like a contest, but more of a scientific contest. Are you ready? It's going to be starting at 1400 Zulu on August 21st, and active on all bands. The bonus points you can get are, if you operate during the totality at your location, you get 100. Operate outdoors, 100. Operate in a public place, an extra 100. Provide detailed station information, 50 points for each antenna information, HFTA terrain profile, ground conductivity, and station ERP on each band. Operate a wideband automated receiver, and 1 point for being spotted in a grid. How to participate. The Solar Eclipse QSO party runs from 1400 to 2200 UTC on August 21st. Exchange a signal report and your 6-character grid locator on 160 through 6 meters, excluding the work bands. You can work stations again after 10 minutes to make more scientific observation on how the bands are changing. CW, RIDI, and PSK are preferred, but all modes are welcome. See www.hamcsi.org/SEQP Solar Eclipse QSO Party for scoring information, bonus points, and complete rules. Hopefully you'll check that website out, and we'll hear you on the 21st. And then the radio sport, you've got EME competition coming up and 10 gigahertz coming up, so we've got some higher frequency stuff headed our way. Also the September VHF contest. How's DX? Bernie is talking about same thing he did last month, talking about the different prefixes off of certain continents. Here he's talking about the islands off of Antarctica instead of last month he was talking about the islands off of Australia. So same article there. What else do we have for you? We'll just go ahead and jump to the quick stats here. On page 142, should be right about here somewhere. There we go. Quick stats. Will you be participating in the new ARRL 222 MHz and up distance contest August 5th and 6th? The winner was no at 80%. Have you ever operated bicycle mobile? The winner was no at 79%. Do you always keep a spare battery ready for your handheld transceiver? The winner was yes at 58%. Do you have a headset for use with your handheld transceiver? The winner was yes at 46%, and down only 1% was no at 45%. So very close call there. Alright, 73s, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next month.